people when I have a profound experience, I am also hesitant, as you said before, to tell people because it is fragile. It's a fragile moment, and I don't want anyone to poo-poo it or brush it away or dismiss it or tell me, I was wrong or I didn't understand.
Right.
To pull me away from the truth that resides within me. Welcome to the second season of the Laughing.Mystics, an unorthodox journey through the liturgical year with Laura Lewis-Barr and Marcy Mederi.
Good morning, Marcy.
Good morning, Laura. It's unusual to record with you in the morning.
Yeah, not my favorite, but here we are, and I'm very happy. And today we had an announcement of the Laughing.Mystics through a company called Pod News.
Pod News?
We're featured on Pod News today.
Wow, isn't that fun?
And it brings up a very interesting topic, which is podcasting is a big deal right now. And you could go down a rabbit hole and spend lots of time, lots of money trying to grow and trying to maybe even make money podcasting. There's another company called PodScan that I recently sent you information about. And what it brings up for me is the issue of faith versus works. Because,
I love this. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Well, like how much do I just trust that things naturally, if we keep showing up and doing this work, we're going to grow. Faith, that's my faith. And versus how much do we need to, should we do to help that along? And what do you want to say about that?
That is an interesting, tension. Maybe that's the best word for it. And I think about that with other parts of my life too. I have a big fundraiser coming up this weekend for my church work. At one point do I say, all right, this is as much as I can do, and Holy Spirit, you have to take it from here.
Oh, I love that way you framed that. And it is this constant discerning of what am I called to do, and trying not to rationalize what I don't want to do versus what I'm called to do. And I tend to lean more into the doing as opposed to the faithful waiting. And that's probably what I'm called to do because it's not my default.
Maybe for me, it helps me have peace with my own limits. I can only do so much, and then I have to let it go because I can't hold on anymore.
Wonderful. And I think I just want to add to that this idea of limits. And as an artist, and you probably find this true too, that limits are what create creativity. They are what leads to a creative tension. That's a great word that propels me to deepen. And so lately, I thank God for all the limits of my life because they really do deepen me and in that creative space where God is.
And it does, my own limits force me to trust God because really God's in charge anyway. I was listening not too long ago to one of our episodes when you were talking about Reggie.
Yeah.
Your dog wanting to be in charge, thinking that he was in charge.
Yeah.
and how much I'm like Reggie that I think that I'm in charge when I'm really not. We are co-creators with God.
Right. And if you are a listener that kind of bristles at the word God, please replace it with whatever divine higher power substitute word that works for you. God is a shortcut word. It is not the mystery. It is just a word.
And it's dog spelled backwards.
Thank you, Trickster Marcy there showing up. Thank you.
There's just a beautiful little video. We'll get the link in the show notes, that plays with that. I look up and I see God. I look down and I see my dog. And really goes into some interesting and sweet theological constructs.
The second Sunday of Lent we are in today, and I have a question. Oh, yeah. So based on the readings, what is God's current design for my life? St. Paul talks about design. What is God's current design for my life? And for extra credit, express it as a landscape.
Do I have to do gestures? And
No.
No, no one could see those anyway. Wow. What is God's current design for my life as expressed in a landscape? For me, right now, it feels like I'm canoeing down a river. And I am a canoeist. I love to canoe. And sometimes in the river, there are twists and turns and logs and rocks, and I have to pay attention to those things, and which takes more focus, concentration. And then every once in a while, the river opens up, and there's an opportunity just to float a little bit. So that's kind of what it feels like for my life, that I'm doing a lot of twists and turns and tight corners. And, is that God's design or is that Marcy's design? That I'm not sure about. I mean, we were just talking about being co-creators. So I don't necessarily feel like a puppet. Like, this is what God has designed for me. I make decisions too, right? I make those decisions to try to pack, 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. So I'm not sure I can put that all on God.
I really love, and I'm very impressed the way you jumped in to the metaphors so beautifully, and what I hear in it, and even your gestures that you were doing, it strikes me as that mindfulness that maybe is part of the design of your life right now, as you just expressed it, this idea that there's really no way to move without a mindfulness to all the twists and turns of your life right now. For me, I thought of myself, and this is influenced by the fairy tale that I've been working on, The Girl Without Hands, that we've talked about, that I'm putting in the show notes. It's a fairy tale that keeps giving me lots of healing images, and this isn't in it, but inspired by it. The landscape is a cave, and I'm in it healing from lots of things in my life. And this idea of allowing quiet, we're kind of in very different landscapes, allowing quiet and peace and a protection and, that womb space. And this is big for me because I think for so many, many, many years, I just was the driver, and taking that time never felt possible or allowable. And this fairy tale keeps telling me that it is both of those things. And so that feels like God's design for me right now. That feels like I'm being given this time and I need it.
What a great image. And good for you to take that time, for that healing.
Our first reading is from Genesis. The Lord said to Abram, "Go forth from the land of your kinsfolk and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. All the communities of the earth shall find blessing in you. Abram went as the Lord directed him.
All right. So here we have Abram, who will become Abraham.
Yeah.
After, more of that covenantal moment between him and God. So just to acknowledge that this is early in their relationship. And already God is blessing Abram and says, I will do all these good things. All you have to do is follow me. Like, I will show you. And my favorite line of this is, Abram went as the Lord directed him. I mean, wow. If I could figure that one out, right? If Marcy could go as God directed her, that would be amazing.
I agree. I put a little star there too. Yeah. My first thought had to do with going forth from the land of your kinsfolk, which to me represents, in a Jungian way, the collective life we belong to, that I belong to, all the shoulds, all the programming I've gotten to live a certain way. And God is asking, through Jungians call it the individuation process, God is calling me to leave that behind. And if any of you have left family, you might know how hard that is. I mean, it's not how we're programmed, I don't think. And if we're called to leave behind physically, emotionally, psychologically, that takes a lot of faith to do that. And so I think, at least psychologically, well, I can't speak to other people's callings, but from what I experience and have learned, it might figure into a lot of our callings to have to separate from the collective. And that's certainly what he does in order to start something fresh.
Well, in this space to be myself. Both my sisters and my parents live in central Wisconsin, which is where I grew up, which is probably 4.5 hours from here. And, as you said, leaving physically is not easy. And yet, for me, it was the life-giving choice to have a little separation for me to be myself and to grow into a new creation.
Yeah, and leaving physically might be what I need. It at one point in my life, it was what I needed in order to leave psychologically. I think it's really hard to separate psychologically, maybe, if we're right in the same land. And this idea of the land, and we started with ideas of landscape, is part of this.
It's interesting, right? Go forth from the land of your kinsfolk, from your father's house. And that at this time, like, that communication and connection would be really hard to continue. Even though I live a ways away, I'm still very close to my family. So just to even say this is bigger, right? What God is asking Abram to do is bigger than just moving across state lines. Because it really is that letting go of the family and letting go of the past.
Right, letting go of the lineage.
Right, and that's so big in Abraham's story, is that all the descendants, that newness, starting from just him, because he is cut off from his lineage.
Right. So it makes me want to ask us all to think about that fresh place and what might I need to walk away from physically or psychologically, emotionally, in order to follow God. And am I doing that, or just this part of the call? All right, let's talk about I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. This is a toughie.
Because God is clearly in Abram's corner?
Yeah. Yeah. Like and we do treat God this way, and
Mm-hmm.
nations treat God this way. Like, God's in my corner. God and I are gonna get you.
Be good to me because then you're also good to God.
If I take this journey as a journey toward me becoming myself, then those who curse me becoming myself are probably also cursing themselves becoming themselves. And in that, they are cursed. Like, we are cursed when we do not become ourselves. So maybe this is just a psychological truth expressed in this way, that we are blessed when we become our true selves. We are cursed when we don't. And we can say God does that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that people who are blessing people who are generous and kind and thoughtful, that generosity and kindness and thoughtfulness does come back.
True.
And those who are angry and resentful and bitter, that is how they experience the world.
Yes,
It's that circle
That's
thing.
another psychological truth. And then another question we can ask is, do people find a blessing in me?
I do.
Oh, thank you. It's such a challenging question
Mm-hmm.
to sit with.
Well, and I sometimes I can't get too much into the other person's head,
Yeah.
whether I'm a blessing to them. All I can do is be my best self, to be the blessing.
You know, that last line, which I agree is just so great, is the beginning of the evolution of consciousness. This is the metaphor of God chooses this man in order to start an evolution in consciousness, and this is always happening in us. We are always being directed toward an evolution to create our own great nation, the many ripple effects of what we might do.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the great nation.
I like that. I just like, Abram choosing, because we were just talking about that not too long ago, about free choice and free will. The Lord didn't force Abram to do anything. Abram went on his own accord.
Yeah, and what a risk it is to
Mm-hmm.
do that. He doesn't know what's coming, where he's going, but this inner call. Well, I could stay with this reading like the entire time because I just love it.
This is a reading from the second letter of Paul to Timothy. So this is to an individual, not to a community. And this is pseudo-Pauline. So plenty of scholars don't think Paul actually wrote this.
Okay.
Beloved, bear your share of hardship for the gospel with the strength that comes from God. God saved us and called us to a holy life, not according to our works, but according to God's own design and the grace bestowed on us in Christ Jesus before time began. But now made manifest through the appearance of our Savior Christ Jesus, who destroyed death and brought life and immortality to light through the gospel.
My first response is that he calls us to a life of the whole, as opposed to holy life in the way we usually think of that, our wholeness. And we've talked a lot about that.
And it's a nice parallel with Genesis, with Abram's story, that God called Abram into this life of blessing, and God calls us into this whole life, a life of blessing.
Right. I agree. And I wrote, God's design is seen in the first and the second reading. Yeah.
Well, if I choose to participate in it. Bear your hardship for the gospel with the strength that comes from God. So the hard work that I have to put out in order to live an awake life, right? To live that life of the gospel, that I can rely on God's strength.
Right.
To help in that moment. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think not glossing over that, because I do. Like, I don't really believe it, I think, lots of times.
You don't believe that?
That there is strength waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
That, it's that constant issue of trust. And I do trust more and more and more, and there's always more to go.
Mm-hmm. It is hard. And sometimes I forget. I can rely on the Lord here. I can ask God. I can pray. Oh, yeah. I don't have to do it all myself.
It's interesting, though, because Paul's writings never land in me the way, or I shouldn't say never, but the first reading and the Gospels are usually mythic, mystical, dreamlike, and my soul gets fed by that stuff. But the simple telling me to do something or remember something or know something, I guess maybe the ego is such a bully. My ego's got her own ideas, and the mystical stories kind of slip around the ego and get to my soul. But these readings don't do that as much for me, so I get kind of stuck.
I think that's actually quite common. I attribute it in part to how our brains receive stories.
Well said.
A story goes to a different part of our brain, and we remember it.
Right. And so I'm surprised, because Jesus was such a storyteller, that Paul doesn't do that. He's like, that's the thing. He's not a storyteller.
No. Maybe Paul was just a really concrete thinker.
I think that is probably more. I mean, he does get mystical sometimes, but not so much as a storyteller. A reading from the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus took Peter, James, and John, his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, conversing with them. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, "Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud cast a shadow over them. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." When the disciples heard this, they fell prostrate and were very much afraid. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, "Rise and do not be afraid." And when the disciples raised their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus alone. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, "Do not tell the vision to anyone until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead."
What a moment. I think we've talked about the Transfiguration before, and maybe to notice that this is the second Sunday of Lent, which is a time where we are called to transform our lives. And so this Transfiguration is a nice lead-in for that.
Yeah. When we come to a reading that we've already done or feels really familiar to me, I'm trying to approach it like a dream. And so I'm doing that here in some of my thoughts. Before I get to that, I just want to ask us and the listeners, maybe to recall any mystical experience we've had even recently in our own lives, because I think this is an encounter with the divine, a mystical encounter. We all have them in various ways. And I think synchronicity as a concept from Jung is an example of a mystical experience. Does one come to your mind? I think while you're thinking, I'll say that for myself, simply using a tool like the I Ching can feel pretty mystical when the one I choose is so uncanny to my situation. It can feel like a connection to what is divine.
What comes to mind is a moment not too long ago that I had when I was seeing someone for spiritual direction. So someone was coming to me for spiritual direction. And as I was listening and just noticing and pointing out some observations, and this individual just had a huge breakthrough and meltdown. To be in this person's presence was really beautiful and profound for me.
Oh, yeah.
So like the sun isn't shining through, in that same way that it's in this transfiguration. I wasn't, outside of my body or anything like that, but to be witness to this really profound moment was very sacred.
Wow, yeah, that was a transfiguration
Mm-hmm.
that you got to be with. How wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a blessing to be able to be in that moment with another person, to be a spiritual director in that way.
Wow, that's beautiful. Okay, so
Can
yes,
I just
please.
I'm just looking, doing a little close reading here, and I just noticed that Peter, James, and John are with Jesus. And I want to know what happened to Andrew, because not too long ago, we heard Jesus calling the first disciples. Simon, which is Peter, and his brother Andrew came,
Oh,
out
yeah,
of the
yeah,
fishing.
yeah.
And then he goes and he finds James and John. So it's like the four of them, the two sets of brothers. We talked about this. And where did Andrew go? Why didn't he get to come along?
Because in this mystical dreamlike reading, we have threes. We have the three, Jesus with the two, and the three. Yeah.
Love that. So Andrew just got the short straw. Said
just in this writing of it, right? Because this is written in such a dreamlike way, and that three is a number for me that is about movement. There's a wonderful old Sicilian image of these three legs running in a circle like a mandala. And so three, Trinity, of course. All right, so here are some ideas if this were my dream. So I'm high up on a mountain, that I have a vision that is a transformation of consciousness. I cannot stay on the mountain. I cannot stay on the mountaintop and have this mystical connection with God. But I can have this vision of wholeness. In this vision, Jesus is not alone. He's glowing with the inner light of God, but he is in a conversation with his heritage. I can have moments of intense connection to God and even to the collective unconscious. I can have a connection with. Those are some. Then the last thought is I have to come down the mountain, and it might be best not to speak about some of my transformations and mystical experiences of the divine.
I do find it interesting as I listen to you, like, oh yeah, Jesus is connecting to his lineage in a way that Abram was asked to leave it, that contrast between the two. I think for me, like if I'm here, how many times have I read this Transfiguration reading? But what strikes me today is is the feeling of the disciples. Because, first of all, they hear the words that Jesus hears when he's baptized in the Jordan. The same words. This is my beloved son with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. But now they hear it, and then they fall down and they're afraid.
Yeah, just like Moses.
Yes, yes. And that encounter with the divine and that bigness, that fear of the Lord. But this really tender, beautiful moment, Jesus came and touched them. Jesus touched them, put his hand on them. And I think of the times when I'm afraid and someone just puts their hand on me and touches me. And what a beautiful connection that is, right? Rise and do not be afraid. How is God's hand on my life, on my heart, on my shoulder? Rise, Marcy. Do not be afraid.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
A couple more ideas to circle around is that the shadow, a bright cloud cast a shadow. So we have brightness and shadow. This is the wholeness of God. The shadow of God comes over them. And I just find, for me, it's a really cool, striking image of the wholeness. It isn't just the bright. It isn't just the light.
Mm-hmm. And the mystery, right? God is mystery, both the bright light and the shadow. And that shadow of the things that we don't see and we don't understand.
Right. I was also thinking, like, this is a very dramatic scene and it's written like a dream or up on the top of a mountain, but this could have been in, quote, real waking life, that they went to the mountain, they were fasting, they were praying, they were on a vision quest, they were with Jesus, and then they have an experience of a vision the way we have those. Like, it doesn't have to be like Ben-Hur in what is the color that they use in those films? They announce that brilliant, I can't think of the color that they would
Technicolor.
Technicolor. It doesn't have to be that. Like, I just keep wanting us to recognize these encounters in our own life, and that if I was to write some of the encounters of my life in a more dramatic way, they might look like this. Mm-hmm. It's like expressing the mystical truth. And Hildegard, I think, probably did this in her writing. Like, it's very huge.
And yet tender.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's another beautiful contrast. This bigness with the light and the shadow and
the booming voice.
The booming voice right next to the tenderness of Jesus, the touch.
Oh, that's really lovely, that connection between the human and the divine.
Mm-hmm.
That's in here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And the many aspects of God. And for many Christians, Jesus is that tenderness of God.
Right.
That makes God so much more accessible.
Yeah.
I just chuckle thinking when Jesus charged them, do not tell the vision to anyone. And I'm sure they're like, yeah, nope, not saying nothing. You didn't even have to tell me. This was too big, too profound. In the end, when I have a profound experience, I am also hesitant, as you said before, to tell people because it is fragile. It's a fragile moment, and I don't want anyone to poo-poo it or brush it away or dismiss it or tell me, I was wrong or I didn't understand.
Right.
To pull me away from the truth that resides within me.
Oh, very well said. But there is a timing to it, right? There will be a time to share, but only when it is internally right, when that higher self in me is ready for me to take that prophetic step and share.
when I feel strong enough to tell the story. And sure enough, and it's grown enough within me that it won't get trampled on.
Right. Well, another excavation of our souls today. And again, we never know what we're going to say. So it always feels like arriving to a wonderful oasis when we finish one of these.
Yes. It's so good because I just think, oh, I have learned and grown so much from our conversation. So thank you, Laura.
I feel the same always. And thank you, listeners. I request of you that if you haven't given us a rating or a like, please do it. It helps us so much. And I'm stepping, into faith about it, and also the work of asking you to do this thing. And yes, tell someone else about this podcast. We would love that too. And we will see you next week.
Until then.